Greater than pride, you hear the word, and maybe you think of someone walking a little taller after doing something good. Winning an award. Building something with their own hands. That kind of pride, well, there's nothing wrong with it. But there's another kind. The kind that doesn't build you up, it builds walls. My sister Lorraine, she's been building those walls her whole life. And I've been standing outside them, watching, wondering when, or if, she'd ever let me in again. I grew up in a little town in Pennsylvania, population just over 2,000. The kind of place where you could walk down Main Street and count every person you saw by name. We had one grocery store, one diner, one church and, in our family, one unspoken rule: don't think you're better than anybody else. My father, Henry Carter, ran the hardware store on the corner of Main and Oak. The kind of place where the bell over the door jingled every time someone came in, and the air always smelled faintly of sawdust and oil. He knew everyone's business, not because he was nosy, but because folks trusted him. My mother, Margaret, worked part-time at the library. She had a soft voice and a way of recommending books that made you feel like you were about to discover a secret. Lorraine was 3 years younger than me, born on a hot August afternoon when the crickets were so loud, you could hear them over the midwives' voices. I remember holding her the first time. She was red-faced and screaming, and I thought, this little thing? I am supposed to protect her? Even as a toddler, Lorraine had a way of making herself noticed. When Mom took us to church on Sundays, I'd sit still, hands folded, like I was supposed to. Lorraine she'd be squirming, smiling at people over her shoulder, making faces at the Johnson twins 2 pews back. When she was 5, she won a ribbon at the county fair for a painting she'd done, bright, messy swirls of color that looked nothing like the picture of the barn she was supposed to paint. When the judge handed her that ribbon, she held it up high, chin tilted back, scanning the crowd like she was queen of the fairgrounds. I remember standing beside her, holding my own ribbon, second place in the pie baking contest, and feeling this strange heat in my chest. Not anger, exactly. Not jealousy. Just something. A flicker of she likes this too much. Our parents were proud of us, sure, but they had no patience for arrogance. Dad would tell us, doesn't matter how high you stand, the ground's still under your feet. Mom's version was softer. The minute you think you're better than someone, you've stopped learning from them. But Lorraine, she heard those words, and they just slid off her. By the time she hit middle school, she wasn't just competing, she was performing. If she got an A, everyone knew about it. If I got one, she'd ask, "Oh, was that in history?" History's easy. At 13, she auditioned for the school play. Landed the lead role, of course, and when I congratulated her, she said, "Well, I mean, who else would they pick?" I told myself it was just her age. Teenagers can be like that. I'd seen other kids strut around like they were the center of the world, only to mellow out once life knocked them around a bit. I figured Lorraine would too. But pride, real pride, it doesn't just fade. It takes root. And if you feed it, even by accident, it grows. Greater than when we grew up, I thought life would even us out. You know what I mean. Real life has a way of humbling people. Bills, jobs, raising kids, all those little things that keep your feet on the ground. But Lorraine, she treated life like a stage. And every time I saw her, it was like I was just another member of the audience. Lorraine graduated high school with honors and a speech that sounded more like a campaign rally than a farewell. She talked about making something of herself and not letting this small town define her. Folks clapped, but I remember looking over at Dad. He wasn't smiling. Later that night, he told me, "She's got talent, but I hope she remembers where home is." She didn't. 2 weeks after graduation, she packed her bags and moved to Philadelphia. Said she had a secretarial job lined up and an apartment with a friend. She hugged Mom. shook Dad's hand like she was closing a deal, and told me, "Don't get too comfortable here, you might surprise yourself." For a while, we talked on the phone every Sunday. She'd tell me about the restaurants she'd been to, the people she'd met, always important people, though she never said exactly what made them important. She started using words like networking and image and branding like she'd swallowed a business magazine whole. Meanwhile, I was settling into my own life. I married Bill, a man who could fix anything with a wrench and a little patience. We bought a small house with a porch swing, the kind of place where you could hear the crickets at night. I started working part-time at the school cafeteria, mostly so I could be home when the kids got off the bus. Lorraine came home for Christmas that first year. She stepped off the bus wearing a coat so white it practically glowed, high-heeled boots that looked impossible to walk in on our icy sidewalks, and a perfume that didn't match our kitchen smell of roast turkey. She kissed Mom's cheek, handed Dad a bottle of wine from a boutique winery you've probably never heard of, and gave me a silk scarf. "From New York," she said, like that explained everything. When I asked how work was going, she smiled, the kind of smile that lets you know the answer will be long. "Well, I am moving up," she said. "My boss says I have the presence of an executive. Honestly, I think it's just a matter of time before I am running my own department." The years went by. She came home less often, and when she did, it was always a production. She'd sweep into the diner for lunch with Mom and me, order something off menu like she was testing the chef, then tell us about her latest apartment, her latest trip, her latest project. When Bill got laid off from the factory one winter, I mentioned it to her over coffee. She tilted her head, frowned slightly, and said, "Well, maybe this is a chance for him to reinvent himself." Like losing your livelihood was some kind of spiritual retreat. Family gatherings started to feel like performances I hadn't auditioned for. Lorraine would talk louder, laugh at her own stories, and somehow make every conversation circle back to her. When she gave gifts, they came in glossy bags with tissue paper so perfect you felt guilty tearing it. And every gift, every single one, came with a story about where it came from, how much it cost, or the exclusive store that sold it. It wasn't just the stuff. It was the way she looked at people when they talked, like she was waiting for her turn instead of listening. One Thanksgiving, about 10 years ago, we had the whole family over at my place. The table was crowded with turkey, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, pumpkin pie, the works. It'd been up since 5 a.m. cooking. Lorraine arrived an hour late, wearing a black dress that could have been in a magazine, carrying a single bottle of champagne. "Sorry," she said, slipping off her coat, "I was at brunch with some friends from the city and lost track of time." She poured herself a glass of champagne, clinked it against Bill's beer bottle, and said, "You really should try this, it's from France. Not the cheap kind." That night, as we cleared the table, I found myself wondering, did she even see us anymore? Or were we just a backdrop for the story she told herself about who she was? Greater than they say, you never really know your family until there's money involved. I used to think that was cynical. Now I think it might be the truest thing I've ever heard. Dad passed away on a Tuesday morning in March. The ground was still hard from winter, and the air had that sharp, metallic smell it gets before the first real thaw. I was with him when it happened. Sitting in that hospital room, holding his hand, listening to the steady beep of the heart monitor. Lorraine hadn't made it in time. She called at 8:30, "Traffic," she said. "There's always traffic when you live in the city." When he was gone, I felt the world tilt in a way I can't explain. Like the foundation under my feet had cracked, but only I could hear it. The funeral was quiet, simple, just the way Dad would have wanted. We buried him next to Mom's parents, under the big oak tree in the churchyard. Lorraine wore a black suit with heels that sank into the grass. She cried, "I'll give her that," but even then, there was something curated about it. Like she knew people were watching. After the service, she slipped her arm through mine and said, "You've been so strong. I don't know how you do it." I wanted to tell her it wasn't strength. It was shock. It was holding myself together because if I fell apart, there was no one else to keep things moving. 2 weeks later, we met at the lawyer's office to read the will. It was a small room, just big enough for a desk, a few chairs, and a wall of books that smelled faintly of dust and leather. The lawyer, Mr. Jennings, was a thin man with white hair and glasses that slid down his nose. Lorraine arrived 10 minutes late, sunglasses still on, carrying a leather folder. She didn't sit until Mr. Jennings gestured to the chair. He cleared his throat. "Your father left instructions to divide his estate equally between his 2 daughters," he said, looking at us over his glasses. "That includes the house, the hardware store, and the savings account." Lorraine smiled. Not a warm smile, more like someone hearing exactly what they expected. Mr. Jennings continued, "However, he added a note, a personal message to both of you." He unfolded a single sheet of paper and read aloud, "To my girls, the store was my life's work, and the house was our home. I trust you'll decide together what's best for both. Remember, no amount of money or property is worth more than family." I felt tears prick my eyes. Lorraine crossed her legs, tapping her heel against the floor. When Mr. Jennings finished, she leaned forward. "Well, I think it's obvious the store should go to me. I have the business sense, the connections, you have your family, your home life. It just makes sense." I blinked at her. "Lorraine, it's half mine. We're supposed to decide together." She tilted her head like I'd just said something quaint. "You wouldn't even know where to start with inventory, suppliers, overhead, and you would." I shot back. "You've never worked a day in that store. Dad taught me how to run the register when I was 12. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I am not saying you're not capable. I am saying you're better off letting me handle it." Something in me snapped. Maybe it was the weeks of grief. Maybe it was the years of her talking down to me. But I leaned forward and said, "This isn't about the store, is it? It's about winning. It's always been about you coming out on top." Her eyes hardened. "It's about preserving Dad's legacy. And frankly, I don't think you're thinking clearly." The room went silent except for the ticking of the clock on the wall. Mr. Jennings cleared his throat again, a little louder this time. "Perhaps you should both take some time before making any final decisions." Lorraine sat back, arms crossed, a faint smile playing at the corner of her mouth. I could feel the heat rising in my face, my hands gripping the edge of the chair. When we left the office, she walked ahead of me, her heels clicking on the sidewalk. She didn't look back. I stood there for a moment, the wind cold against my cheeks, realizing Dad's words about family meant nothing to her if it meant giving up control. And in that moment, I knew, we weren't just sisters anymore. We were opponents. Greater than when pride wins, everybody loses. I didn't understand that until I saw my own sister become a stranger. After the lawyer's office, weeks passed without a word from Lorraine. No calls, no emails. The only sign of her was the certified letter that arrived one Thursday afternoon, written in legal language that made my stomach knot. She'd hired her own attorney. The letter said she was formally requesting the transfer of full ownership of the hardware store, offering to buy out my half. The number she offered was insulting. It wasn't just low, it was a slap in the face. I called her. She didn't answer. Bill found me at the kitchen table that night, staring at the letter. He poured me a cup of coffee, sat down across from me, and said, "You don't have to sell if you don't want to." I shook my head. It's not just about selling. It's the way she assumes she's entitled to it. Like I am just in the way. He put his hand over mine. Then stand your ground. Months went by. The store sat in limbo, shelves gathering dust, windows getting cloudy. Folks in town started asking questions. I hated the pity in their voices. Finally, I went down there one Saturday, unlocked the door, and just stood in the middle of it. The smell of lumber and oil, the creak of the floorboards, it was Dad's voice in the walls. And I realized I couldn't give it up. Not to her. Not like this. When Lorraine found out I wasn't selling, she called me for the first time in 6 months. Her voice was sharp. You're being unreasonable. I took a breath. No, I am honoring what Dad wanted. We were supposed to decide together. You're clinging to the past, she snapped. This isn't about Dad anymore. It's about moving forward. I let the silence stretch. Sometimes moving forward means holding on to what matters. She hung up. Years passed. We spoke less and less. Birthdays came and went without a card. Holidays were just me, Bill, and the kids. I missed her, or maybe I missed the idea of her, the sister I thought I had before pride took her away. One winter evening, about 5 years after Dad's funeral, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was a nurse from a hospital in Philadelphia. Lorraine had been admitted, heart trouble. She wanted to see me. I went. When I walked into that room, I barely recognized her. She looked smaller, fragile in a way I'd never seen. She smiled, weakly. You came. I sat down, took her hand. Of course I came. She closed her eyes for a moment, then said, I was wrong. About the store. About a lot of things. I felt my throat tighten. Lorraine, no, let me say it, she whispered. I spent my whole life trying to be more. And somewhere along the way, I forgot what I already had. We sat there in silence for a long time, just holding hands. The machines beeped softly in the background. She recovered enough to leave the hospital a week later. We're not what we used to be, maybe we never will be, but we talk now. Not about money, or business, or who's right. Just about life. And I've learned something. Pride doesn't just push people away. It builds walls so high, you can't see what you're losing until you're on the other side. Greater than Dad was right. No amount of money or property is worth more than family. I just wish we'd both learned it sooner.